I love your sweater, by the way.
Thank you. I do
so
too.
Cool.
It's such a fun design.
Yeah, it feels like it came straight out of the 90s. Mm-hmm. I've realized something about my wardrobe since doing this podcast.
What?
We've done like 11 episodes, 12 episodes. I think I've worn all my clothes already. Like, I've worn this shirt before on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm out of options. I have my Rem Lazar shirt. Oh, I have my The Thing shirt.
There you go.
I haven't worn that one.
There you go. What about the one with the movie that you haven't even seen?
No, I watched the movie.
Oh,
That's
you
the
did?
Thing shirt.
Oh, okay.
I got the shirt because I thought it was cool.
And then you watched the movie?
And then I was like, wow, they made a movie based off this shirt.
I told you I would do a full one-woman production of the book that we are doing this week. Welcome to Your Favorite Book Podcast. I'm Mallory.
I'm Tanner. Unfortunately, we are siblings.
Yes, and we like books. The book we're doing today is Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt.
You're going to regret taking that off there.
Oh, I'm never going to be...
Ooh, good job. This is by Natalie Babbitt.
Yeah.
Did you say that already?
I think so.
Okay. And it's fitting that her name is Babbitt because it sounds like baby, which is who this book is made for.
Oh, yeah.
It's for babies.
Yeah, I read it in 5th grade. Yeah.
And that is not a bad thing.
Look how little it is. Look at how little it is.
It's a little book. But to me, it feels like a classic.
I agree.
I wonder if it's considered a classic.
I don't know. I consider it a classic.
It's kind of old. It was written in the 70s.
Yeah. This was my top favorite book when we did our top 5. And I love this book so much. I love this story so much. I love every adaptation because I'm able to separate myself and enjoy the adaptations separately.
For their differences.
Yes.
Even the movie?
Yes, because I can look at it differently. The movie is very, very different.
I have not seen the movie since I was like maybe 10. Mm-hmm. I remember liking it, but I was just a little baby. So the first time I read this book was in 5th grade. We had just moved to where we live. And our 5th grade teacher, we read Holes that year and this book. Two great books. I
and
love
then,
Holes.
We'd watch the movie after we read them.
That sounds weird. I love that book named Holes.
Yes. And I just really loved it.
Back then you really connected with it.
I did. And I just really enjoyed the proposition of if you had the chance to live forever, would you take it?
It's such a simple and pure pitch.
Yeah, and everybody can relate to that. Everybody can ponder that for quite a while before coming up with their answer, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're that little. Because when you're a kid, I mean, the main character is Winnie Foster. Mm-hmm. All the names in this book are brilliant, by the way. You don't really think about your mortality unless you're directly confronted with it. Yeah. Like a loved one or a friend dies or something like that. Or if you're really sick and your parents have to explain to you like, oh, you're going to die soon. Like, geez. So I think that's why it's so important that the main character is a child. Well, it's important for a few reasons, which we'll get into. Yeah. And I'm interrupting your story.
No, you're fine.
But I think Winnie Foster being a child is important because she's almost learning for the first time, this is what death is like. Yeah. Or this is, it's that shared fear of mortality. Yeah. She's confronting that for the first time.
And she's starting to understand that the world is bigger than what she sees directly. Yeah. I loved reading this in class in 5th grade. I thought it was just so interesting. And I've always been a bookworm. Yeah. Really, I read and read and read and read. And so I really enjoyed reading. This was like the first, I mean, it's not really contemporary because there's a magical spring that makes you immortal, but it was, I had been reading like Wings of Fire with dragons. Yeah, and
like typical middle grade fantasy stuff.
Owls of Ga'Hoole or whatever. So I was like,
there's a different type of fiction out there.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I just have such a good connection to this story.
Yeah. And then you read it again later in life?
Yeah, I reread it pretty frequently.
Oh, okay. So in our top 5 favorites, you said that you read Tuck Everlasting when you worked at the theater in Idaho.
Yeah.
And that was when it really struck an emotional chord with you.
Yes.
You're remembering your own story?
No, I can't remember my own story.
Okay. That's at least what I recall.
Yeah.
But regardless of when it happened, obviously the story speaks to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have such a funny attachment to this book.
Okay.
Where I read it in 5th grade and then grew up and started working at the same elementary school that I read it in. And my 5th grade teacher was my boss. And during that time, I got cast in a production as Winnie in Tuck Everlasting. So it's just this funny connection. And it's like, oh, that kind of fits with the idea of the play too. I don't know. I don't know if that made any sense. But the book, let's talk about what it's about, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So it follows an 11-year-old girl. Is she 11 in the book?
10.
10 in the book. Okay. She's a different age in the book, movie, and the musical. So
really?
I can never
How old is she in the musical? Because she comes across as much younger.
12 in the musical.
Oh.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
She's the youngest in the book.
It's all the same.
Yeah. And in the movie, she's older because, they had to push the romance. YA romance.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. You gotta sell tickets somehow, I guess. And, if you... Yeah, whatever. It follows a 10-year-old girl who is stuck in a life that is stifling and boring to her, and she's yearning for adventure. Her father recently passed away, and so her mother keeps her...
Not in the book.
Oh, really? Bro. Really?
I think so. It says at the end that she reunites with his mother and his father.
Right.
Yeah.
Her dad is dead in the movie and the musical.
It would make more sense for the story if he did die.
Sorry.
Recently.
You can't even trust me to recap my favorite book.
No, that's okay. There are minute differences.
Yeah.
Between all of them. And it's been like, what, a year or two since you were in the play?
Since I've, yeah, for sure.
So.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But this...
It's such a it's such a minor detail where it's like, it's not really about Winnie's relationship with her parents. This is about Winnie finding a everlasting family called the Tucks.
Yeah.
Winnie's family owns a wood, which is beautifully described.
Yes.
Everything in this book is beautifully described.
Even just the very first paragraph.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's basically perfect almost. I would say in almost every way. It's
so lyrical and whimsical. It just captures the feeling.
Winnie travels to the wood and finds...
She decides to run away.
Yeah. And she finds a boy sitting in a tree who's 17, and she finds him very attractive. And she sees that he drinks from a spring at the root of the tree. He removes some pebbles, and this little stream pops out. And she wants to drink from it too, and he tries to keep her from it. There's a great little moment of dialogue where it's like, there's no surprises in this book. You know that this family's immortal.
Yes.
And when Winnie asks Jesse Tuck how old he is, he says, I'm 108 years old.
Yep.
Or 107 years old. And she's like, stop playing around. He's like, okay, well, I'm 17. It's like just really cute dialogue written so perfectly.
Yep.
It's really witty and snappy. I mean, it's a short book for middle grade or maybe younger audiences. Yeah. But still, I enjoyed it as an adult. It was such a breeze the entire way through. Yeah. It was just a charming read.
It's a very approachable idea and storyline.
Yes, it's super simple in those aspects. And that's why I can't really critique it at all.
Yep.
But anyway, the basis of the story is that Winnie finds Winnie is basically kidnapped by the Tuck family. Yeah. Taken to their home so that they can explain to her that they're immortal and why she can't drink from the spring herself. Or she needs to know what the consequences of becoming immortal are before she makes that decision.
Yeah, especially as a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Which is so great. Like, and that's basically the entire story.
Yeah, that's it.
It's really kind of a way, this story is kind of an excuse to explore those philosophies of immortality.
Yeah.
And mortality. And it's just done so well. It's such a light touch on those subjects.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it also very elegantly handles the idea of it's very different if you're a 10-year-old becoming immortal versus an adult becoming immortal.
Yeah.
Like, she hasn't lived yet. That's the whole point that the Tucks make to her.
Yes.
Is that, like, you don't know what you're getting into. You're too young to understand, but we'll try anyway. And she gets it at the end.
Yeah, I think she definitely does. Yeah. Living forever is not true living is what they tell her. It's a sad book to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because that poor family, they didn't like find this spring, drink from it, and because they knew that it was the fountain of youth.
It was an accident.
It was an accident. And those poor kids, especially, Jesse and Miles. It's just so sad.
Yeah.
They were 17 and 22. Miles got married and had 2 children. And they left when his wife was 40, and they saw that he wasn't aging. It's just such a horrible tragedy.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like, how, I mean, of course, all of it's made up, but how difficult would it be to navigate that conversation as an immortal to a child?
Yeah.
To be like, you can't really understand the gravitas of the situation, but I've watched my family and my children outlive me and I haven't changed.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, describing the despair that Miles as a character goes through, and for him to be like, you can't drink from the spring. Miles is genuinely upset that Winnie's even entertaining the idea, let alone Jessie, who's like, come on along, Winnie!
But Jessie's just as sad as Miles, I think.
All of them are.
Yeah. She does such a good job of explaining each of these characters' motivations and how drinking from the youth at these different stages of their lives affect them differently.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like the parents, obviously they're extremely sad because they just can't change. They watch the world change around them.
Yeah.
And they just want to move on they're like stuck in the twilight of their years together, but at least they're together.
Yeah.
I don't know how much better that would make immortality.
Yeah.
Is if you were with someone that you love. We could have a discussion about that, but Jesse is certainly, at least outwardly, more upset about his immortality because he's alone.
Yeah.
And he's very highly motivated in convincing Winnie to, like, when you're 17, drink from the fountain, then we can be immortal together forever.
We can go on adventures together for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. And when they first meet and Winnie is kidnapped by Jesse's mom, May Tuck, Jesse is ecstatic.
Yeah.
He's like a child. And I love that he's actually written like a child. His character.
Yeah.
He doesn't act like 107-year-old man. He's still, like, stuck in a 17-year-old's brain.
Naive.
Yeah. Like, of course, a 17-year-old would be so excited at the prospect of meeting someone brand new that they're attracted to. Yeah. Even though she's a 10-year-old girl, but he says, let's wait. Yeah. Because he still sees himself as a 17-year-old. Right. And making them all feel like, oh, they're all 107 years old. Yeah. Or whatever. That would make them so similar.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how she handles each character's reaction to their immortality. Yeah. And all of them are so unique, and it's nice, you know? You don't want a whole bunch of old people that are like, you shall not drink. I don't know. That's boring.
Yeah. I like that Jesse isn't all grown up. And Miles is too, but that's because he had obviously he's more grown up than Jesse, but yeah. That it's nice having all those different perspectives.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite scene in the book was when Winnie's taken out to the lake by Tuck. Angus Tuck, that's his name. They just call him Tuck. And he tells her why she shouldn't drink from the fountain and gives him basically what I saw as like the theme of the book for me.
Yeah.
I think this book is universal because we're all going to die. And that's probably why it's like an enduring classic.
Yeah.
Like aside from it, being very well written and a very good story, just the theme alone of like, this is why you should
enjoy life while you live it.
Yes. And not be afraid of dying.
Yeah. I think that's such a universal fear. Like everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter what time you're living in.
Yeah, we're all going to die one day. And the way that it's written, his monologue basically, is just gorgeous. When he talks about the trees and all the life around the lake and in the wood, they all are going to die and change one day. And that's the same with humans. We're going to change one day too. And that's really important.
It's all part of the cycle.
Yeah. And he even tells her like, man, are you even getting this? Like, you're just a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Am I getting through to you?
Yeah.
And she really doesn't give Winnie too much character, which I like. She really is just kind of like a silent protagonist.
Oh, yeah.
No, not a Mary Sue.
Okay.
Just kind of a silent protagonist. And I only say that because I'm used to reading much bigger books.
Yes.
Where it's like, the character's worldview is so important to explain. To make the character feel unique.
Yeah.
Winnie is really just a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like someone for the reader to fill her shoes.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is, I think, harder to do than it seems.
Yeah.
Like,
it makes her feel like a child.
Yeah.
Where she is just kind of like an empty vessel.
Yeah. But she still feels complete and like a full character, too.
Yeah. And she has power over her own decisions. And she does come up with her own idea of what, of how she feels about immortality.
Yeah.
Obviously. At the beginning, she thinks it sounds nice.
Yeah.
She could be a kid forever. And she doesn't want, she even tells Angus, I don't want to die. He says, I know, but how do I explain to a 10-year-old why it's important that you should die?
Yeah.
Like, geez.
How would you? Yeah. Well, Natalie figured out how.
Yeah, she did. And I think she does the right thing by focusing on, well, it's not so much about like, you just have to die. It's important to get to the end really quickly.
Yeah.
It's to live a full life until you die.
Yeah.
And Winnie takes that to heart at the end of the story. Spoiler alert, I guess. But there's a man in a yellow suit who, I don't know if he has a name.
He doesn't.
Okay. He's just the man in the yellow suit.
Yep.
He's Curious George's dad.
Evil stepdad.
Yes. After Curious George dies, he gets all depressed. He's like, I need to find a cure to immortality.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's his backstory. And he's trying to find the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, he's heard rumors of the Tucks and has been searching for it.
Yeah.
Which, my own personal theory, and a lot of other people share this theory too, is that the man in the yellow is Miles' son or grandson. And he's heard the tales from his mother, who was like, something's out there.
Interesting.
And it's out there if you know where to look for it. I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea. I like that. I like that it's also left ambiguous. I prefer that.
Yeah, I do too.
I like when it's up to interpretation. But the man in the yellow is such a great character to show the contrast between Winnie, who is so young and joyful and just like, wow, there's no drawbacks here. This would be fun. Versus the man in yellow who's like, I want to make money off of this. I want to find the secret, tell all these people about it, and profit off of it personally, and end my own troubles. And that's all I care about. I want to be rich and I want to live forever. I don't know. It's a great comparison. Yeah.
It's a nice contrast between him and the Tucks, too. Where the Tucks, they drank from the fountain and they saw the drawbacks immediately. And they don't want anyone to know about it. And not in a selfish way, but because they want to protect the world from the pain that they suffer from.
Yeah.
And the old man wants to obviously profit from it. The man in the yellow suit.
Yeah.
At the end of the story, the man in the yellow suit finds May. She's been with the Tucks, and he's used knowing where she was as leverage to purchase the wood from her family, which is really sick and offhanded, very evil.
Yep.
It's done very effectively. I truly did feel like, oh, I really hate this guy. What a scumbag.
Yep. He's like, I'll tell you where your daughter is if you give me all of the land you own.
Yeah. And the constable's like, I basically deputize you, sir.
Yeah. But I think I really enjoy that because I just love, this is going to sound so weird. Don't take this out of context. I love a skeevy old man. Like, I like seeing the underhanded, politically aware character who's like, oh, I'm going to manipulate every single person in here to get what I want. And I will do it successfully. I like that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I love to hate it. I guess.
I know what you mean. It's a good force to work against. And that's really the only plot in this book.
Yeah.
That's the only obstacle for these characters to overcome. Like I said, it's super light. The whole point is to really explain that theme of what would you do if you could live forever. And the man in the yellow hat is simply there to kind of push the plot along a little bit. Like, how does May come back home? Well, the man in the yellow suit, Jesus, returns her to her family. But before he can do that, May Tuck takes the shotgun, hits him over the back of the head.
Yep. Classic May.
Classic May. I love that it's May that does that
do too.
And not Angus or anyone else or her sons.
I feel like, I just think that's such a great moment. She's been through so much and she's watched all of her family go through so much.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can't let this happen to anybody else. Like, it's such a...
Yeah. They adopt her in a day. They adopt Winnie in a day.
Yes.
And they love... And they even tell her, I wish you were our own. And I think maybe that's part of them, like... They would feel like they're alive again if they could watch Winnie grow up, if they could raise her. But I think they're also wise enough to know that that would be a huge mistake if they did.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a tragic family. Super tragic.
It is.
Angus even tries... I mean, it's quite there's some dark moments in this book.
There are some dark moments. There's multiple characters who talk about...
That's okay.
Okay. There's multiple characters who talk about taking their own lives and attempting that to escape the stasis that they're stuck in, and it's never successful. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, it's relatable. You can put yourself in their shoes, and of course that would be torturous.
Yeah, like if you can totally understand why Miles, after watching the love of his life and his children grow up and hate him and think he's a witch, basically, like an evil spirit or something like that, like
a demon,
and for them to run away, and oh my gosh, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, you also love the Tucks because Miles doesn't force his family to drink from the fountain too, so that they can all stay together forever. That would be the selfish thing to do.
Yeah,
like she writes these characters, this family is very noble and virtuous.
Yes.
Which just makes your heart break for them even more.
They're just good people.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, it's just, I love the characters. I love so much about this book.
Yeah. It's a nice contrast for me after finishing Mockingjay.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure.
Oh, finally, there's good in the world. Their life is worth living. It's great. Anyway, the story ends with May hitting the man in the yellow suit in the back of the head. The Tucks return Winnie to her family, and May gets arrested for battery and assault and attempted murder.
Yes.
And in the book, I think the plot's a little bit different in the book than in the play.
And the movie, too.
In the movie, yeah. I don't remember the plot in the movie.
It's the book and the movie are closer in this aspect that we're talking about.
So do they have the scene where May attacks the yellow man?
Yes, they do.
The man in the yellow suit?
Yeah.
Not the yellow
man. And
man.
she's also sentenced to hang.
In the movie?
In the movie.
Okay. In the book, they just put her in prison and they wait and see if the man will die. And he does. So, like I said, this book for children they've got some dark moments.
Yeah.
And I love that she doesn't shy away from that.
Yeah, when I was talking to our dad about this a while ago, a long time ago, and I was like, oh, I read it in 5th grade, and he was a little surprised at first.
Yeah.
Like, when I was reading it, I didn't think much of it, but looking back on it, I'm like, oh, there's quite a bit of dark stuff there.
Yeah, there is, especially for a younger audience. But I love that you read it when you were that young. Too.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think that's important, and it's good to push people to think about stuff that they wouldn't normally think about. You know? I mean,
life isn't that safe. Anyway, Winnie, she takes the place of May. She works with Jesse and Miles to free her from prison. They escape, and Winnie wakes up in jail the next day, and everyone is shocked at what she did.
Yeah.
But I think that's her paying back the Tucks for what they did for her, which is funny because they kidnapped her.
Yeah.
But they did treat her perfectly well.
Yeah.
And she felt like she was a part of their family.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah, and they taught her so much is it just a couple of days?
It's just one day in the book.
Just one day? Okay, that's what
Which I also love.
I do too. Wow, here's a 40-year-old life lesson in one day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And it doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem pressured at all. Like, Natalie Babbitt does such a great job of capturing how wise all of the Tucks are, especially that moment between Angus and Winnie where, man, I'm like, dang, is she immortal? How did she know exactly what to say? I don't know.
Yeah,
I love it.
She's very wise, obviously. And that was my favorite. Well, I liked a lot about this book. I love the characters. The plot is super simple, but it's totally effective. And obviously the theme is really strong.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully written. I seriously have zero complaints about this book.
It's so lyrical and you can tell that she's crafted every single sentence towards her target perfectly.
Yes. To me, I think her writing style does fall in similar quality as like Neil Gaiman or Terry Pratchett.
I agree.
It's super clever and witty. At times it's funny.
Yeah.
The tone is also very similar to something like Stardust. Where it feels like a fairy tale.
Yeah, it's like whimsical.
Yeah, it's younger. I'm sure if I read Coraline, which I've never read before, but I want to.
Okay, well, next episode.
Yeah, I wonder if it will be even closer to Tuck Everlasting.
It is very close
just because it's a younger story.
Other than Coraline is quite a bit creepier.
Yeah.
But I mean, duh.
It's a bit... I just know the main character is younger.
Yeah.
And Stardust is 4.
Yeah, and Coraline is the same size as this too. So.
Okay, yeah. But I love stories like these.
I do too. It's kind of like sometimes you read 900 plus page fantasies and you let yourself have a little brain break.
Yeah. Well, no, that's actually great to talk about because I only read like epic fantasy or epic sci-fi stuff. Yeah. So
500
this is
plus at least.
I know. That's the stuff that I love, but it is nice to read stuff like this every once in a while and break it up.
And then you're like, oh, I'm done. Oh.
I know. I can move on.
That was lovely.
Yeah.
That was lovely.
It's like, no wonder I read so few books every year. The books that I read are 600 pages long.
Yeah, they're like 85 of these.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, I love it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, can we talk about the epilogue?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I love the epilogue. First of all, right before the epilogue, the last thing Winnie does is
save May Tuck. Yeah.
Yeah. So she saves May Tuck and then she gets back home. And she has her little vial of pond water, right?
From the pond?
Yeah.
In the book?
Not the pond,
from the fountain?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's not in the book.
Bruh. She's struggled to funk today. Struggle to function. Okay, how about you tell me what happens?
All that I remember is that she goes to sleep and then her family talk about how that's such an unusual thing for Winnie to do. And then in the epilogue, it's told from the perspective of May and Angus.
Yes.
And they visit the town where they met Winnie in. And the wood is gone.
Yes.
And they find her gravestone.
Yes, but there's a moment right before that. It's
okay, go ahead and explain
moment in the whole book where she's like, just, debating and wondering about life.
Yeah.
And she's like, this little frog looks pretty thirsty.
Yeah.
Gluggy, 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 glug. And she makes the frog immortal.
Yes. Okay.
I just love that.
And May and Angus find that frog too.
Yes.
So it's a sweet little motif, I guess.
Yes. I just love frogs. I don't know why I wanted to bring it up, but I think it shows once again the spontaneous joy that Winnie brings to the life of the Tucks.
Mm-hmm.
In that she has this great power in her hands. And she chooses to give it to a frog that's been on her road for a while.
Yeah.
I think it's fun. That's it.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Instead of her seeing it like most people in the world would, like the man in the yellow suit, where it's like, I can profit from this. This is so valuable. It's everlasting life. Who doesn't want that? But she sees it as the curse that it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other stories that have tackled the issue of mortality.
Mm-hmm.
There's a movie called Near Dark, which is about vampires, a found family of vampires. It's very dark, where they kind of take it from the perspective of, if people could live forever, then they would just fall into debauchery and crime to try and feel something.
Yeah.
And the main character has an arc kind of similar to Winnie, but they're forced into immortality. It's an interesting movie. There's also Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Or I'm sorry, not Stardust. The Sandman.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking of the Sandman.
Stardust kind of deals with it a little bit too. But
yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
But it's more like, and then they lived happily ever after.
Yes.
It's like true fairy tale.
Yeah.
It doesn't really tackle that thematically, as far as I remember. It's been a year or so since I've read the book.
It does a little bit, but that's okay.
In Sandman, the comic, I watched the Netflix series, which is great.
Yeah.
There's a character, and it's just a little subplot. It follows the main character, Death, who's a god, and he grants a human immortality because they make some kind of deal. And then he comes back to meet the human every 100 years or 10 years or something to say, so how's immortality?
Yeah.
And every 100 years, the character's like, life is great. I'm so happy that I could live forever.
Yeah.
He's like, I started this business. I'm a multi-billionaire now. And it's really interesting to watch that character's arc as well.
Yeah. I have one.
Okay.
This one is, how long have you been 17? Twilight handles it too.
Yes.
And what
Near
did the
Dark
Colons
is kind
do?
Near Dark is kind of like the opposite of Twilight.
Yeah. Well, what did the Colons do? They repeat high school.
Mm-hmm.
They've all gone through high school.
How interesting.
Why? Why did you pick that one?
Because he has to stalk someone.
It's so funny to me.
He has to stalk someone into love with them.
Oh my gosh. It's just funny. Obviously, this is something that a lot of authors like to explore through writing, and readers love to experience that too. And there's so many different aspects and ways that you can perceive it.
Yeah.
And none of them are wrong, because is there a fountain of immortality?
I don't know. Well, that discussion to me is interesting. There's so many different ways you could take that. For Tuck Everlasting, it's very obvious what she's saying about it, which is that it's nothing but a curse.
Yeah.
Even if you live for 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years, you would want to change.
Yeah.
Eventually,
and to watch, I love how much she talks about watching the people that you can't get close to people anymore. Because when they try to get close to people, they die, they leave them, they're gone. There's, you can't stay with them. It's just, it's so sad and
it's
fantastic.
Also beautiful. It really speaks to my worldview, which is that I believe this life is the only thing that we have. And that's what makes it so precious.
Yeah.
So those beautiful, fleeting things, you really do have to appreciate and seek out. They don't last forever, and you can't make them last forever.
No, because you shouldn't.
They shouldn't, because if they did, they would lose all their meaning. And I connect with stories that have that type of messaging when it comes to immortality.
Yeah, I do too. I would much rather explore that version of immortality than...
It's fun and fancy free.
Yeah, which it's
there's
still
no consequences.
fine. It's fine. It just doesn't make you think.
Yeah, I would like to read a story where it's like, okay, here's a positive take on immortality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd love that discussion.
Yeah.
We could fill podcasts about it.
Yes.
We already have with this book.
Yes.
Even though, you could probably read it faster than... You could probably listen to it faster than listening to this podcast.
Probably. It's a short read.
No, I'm joking.
If you listen to it on 2x speed, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, this was just a brilliant read, and I think we've pretty much covered everything.
I think so. It's going to be a shorter episode than usual.
That's fine.
The extra time, it's like when you go to class and the teacher's like, I'm going to let you out 5 minutes early, and because you get 5 extra minutes, I want you to do this. With your extra 20 minutes today, viewers, I want you to read Tuck Everlasting.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You could finish it in a sitting.
It's so great. I also find whenever I read it, I do it in one sitting.
Yeah,
it's
so do
just so easy to read.
I did. It was my first time reading it, and I did it in one day.
Yeah. It's easy to read. It's delightful.
Yeah.
Oh, I have nothing but good things to say about this.
Same here. Literally nothing but good things.
Yep. I have 5 different copies. That's how much I like it.
One thing I wanted to say is that I think I liked the play better than the book, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And that might have been because you were in it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy...
The music's great. I think the story's even better.
They handle it really well, and they explore the stasis that the Tucks are stuck in more. Mm-hmm. And they show how Winnie pulls them out of that, which I think is often overlooked in the book. People kind of think about just how Winnie feels, and they don't think about how this poor family has been doing the same thing for a century. Mm-hmm. And no one's happy. No one is happy in the beginning of this book. And it's fun
until
to
Winnie
explore
comes
that.
along.
Yeah, and she breathes life back into them.
Yeah, for a brief moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the lyrics in the musical are fantastic as well. And there's also there's quite a few like word for word quotes that the writers sneak in there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a brilliant adaptation.
Fantastic.
If you have a chance to watch the musical, then you should.
Yep.
If you can.
I don't have a bootleg of my version.
Unfortunately not. Well, is this one of your favorite books?
No, I do have a bootleg of my version.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
I thought you were joking.
No, I don't have one.
Ah.
That would be illegal.
So don't get in
frowned upon. Just
us.
kidding. Yeah, the musical's fantastic. I just think it's such a great story, and I love it so much.
But it's not one of your favorites.
No, it is. It is. It is one of my favorites. Seriously. Yep. There's a reason why it is my top favorite book.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I read it, I gain something new that I didn't think of last time, which I really enjoy too.
Yeah.
It's just so simple and perfect to me. I mean, opinions are biased. Why? I'm biased. Everybody is. It's an opinion. Mm-hmm. I just love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's good every time. The movies.
Do you have a question for me?
Is it one of your favorite books?
I'm trying to end the podcast. I'm waiting for you to ask.
Is it one of your favorite books?
I already know it's your favorite book. We did top 5 favorite books. It was your favorite book. Don't you want to know if I liked it?
I was not sharing.
Okay.
This is a co-hosted podcast.
I know. Co-host with me. You're sucking all the air out of the room.
Is this one of your favorite books?
Yes!
Yay!
We did it.
We made it. I just want to show off that this is a first printing.
It's perfect, too. It's like no one ever touched it before.
Yeah, I have a Barnes & Noble exclusive, which is very cute.
Well, I think that's the end of the episode.
Okay.
If you enjoyed, let us know.
Have you ever read Tuck Everlasting? Oh, I have a good one.
What?
If you had the chance to drink from the spring, would you?
Yeah. And what would the water taste like?
Probably frog pee.
Probably. Let's hope so. Fingers crossed.